Hello, second graders. Today we are going to learn how to do a brand new skill in reading. The skill we're going to learn about is how to find the main idea in a passage. A lot of times when we're finding the main idea, the passage that we're reading is filled with facts. It's a non-fiction passage. And that's specifically what we're going to be working on for a couple of weeks at school. So, very, very important that you be able to identify the main idea of a passage because, after all, that's pretty much what the author wants us to learn about and wants us to know. With the main idea, it is usually located here at the beginning of the passage. It might be located at the end of the passage. And if we're really lucky as a reader, the author will put it at the beginning and again at the end of the passage. When we're looking for main idea, we want to make sure that we read the passage closely. We want to make sure if it's got a title, we look at the title, and we want to make sure that we look at any pictures to try to figure out what is this passage mostly about. The passage is also going to be filled with details, which are all of those little pieces of information that support the main idea. Let's do this example that I have on the screen. I'll read the text to you. Honeybees live and work together in a hive. Working together helps them stay safe. Each bee in the hive has a special job to do. Some of the bees in the hives are worker bees. The worker bees are in charge of bringing food back to the hive. They collect pollen on their legs and bring it back to feed the baby bees in the hive. They also bring back nectar and use it to make honey. Each hive also has many guard bees. Guard bees have well-developed stingers. Their job is to keep intruders out of the hive. They guard the entrances to the hive and allow worker bees to enter, but keep other creatures out. If you have ever been stung by a bee close to a hive, it was probably a guard bee. There is one special bee in the hive called the queen bee. The queen bee lays the eggs for the hive. She makes sure there are baby bees to keep the hive going. A queen bee lives much longer than the other bees and spends most of her life in the hive. Honeybees work together to help each other find food and to keep each other safe. Each bee in the hive has a job to do. They depend on each other to keep the hive safe and happy. So that was our passage. When we go to answer what is the main idea, here's a reminder. When we look for the main idea, we're going to look at the beginning of the passage, we're going to look at the end of the passage, and we might even notice that the beginning and the end are very similar. So let's do that for our passage. The beginning right up here, I'm going to read again. Honey bees live and work together in a hive. Working together helps them stay safe. Each bee in the hive has a job to do. I think I know what the main idea is. I'm thinking it's about how they work together and they each have a job. Let's check the end. Down here, I usually look at the last sentence or two. Each bee in the hive has a job to do. Oh, okay, that makes sense. I read that up at the beginning too. They depend on each other to keep the hive safe and happy. Oh, well, that's about working together. So if I come up here, I'm going to look at those words again because, of course, it's going to be a lot easier to look back in the passage to spell some words. So what is the main idea in the passage? If I were writing it, I would say the main idea is that bees work together in their hive and each bee has a special job to do. Now, as we start the week, I'm going to give you some options for main ideas, and you're going to have to choose. As we get toward the end of the week and into next week, you're going to have to actually write your main idea. Notice I started with the main idea is. That's what I'm going to want you to start your sentences with. The main idea is that bees work together in their hive, and each bee has a special job to do. Yep, I think that's right from the passage. Now, my next question says, tell me two details from the passage. Well, if the bees work together and each bee has a special job, I need to tell what the jobs are. So I'm going to go back to the passage. Oh, I see here's the information about worker bees. Here's the information about guard bees. And here's the information about queen bees. Okay, it looks like I had to tell two details. So I'm going to choose worker bees. And when we do details, we can pull the sentences exactly out of the passage. So as I reread, I see some of the bees in the hives are worker bees. Okay, that's great. I want to write about the worker bees, but that doesn't really tell me what they do. So I need to pick a different sentence that tells me what do worker bees do. Oh, here's one. The worker bees are in charge of bringing food back to the hive. Okay, I could write that. Oh, it also says they collect pollen on their legs and bring it back to feed the baby bees. Oh, I could write that one. They also bring back nectar and use it to make honey. Oh, okay, well, there are three different details just about worker bees. I like the first one. The worker bees are in charge of bringing food back to the hive. Hey, here I go. The worker bees are in charge of bringing food back to the hive. And of course, I can look back at the passage to spell words. I could add, they feed it to the babies. I wanted to really do a good job. Okay, now I have to go and find out about a different one. I want to write about the queen bee because I thought that was interesting. Okay, there's one special bee in the hive called the queen bee. The queen bee lays eggs for the hive. She makes sure there are baby bees to keep the hive going. A queen bee lives much longer than most other bees and spends most of her life in the hive. All right, well, I think her most important job is laying eggs for the hive and making sure there are always baby bees to keep the hive going. So I'm going to say the queen bee lays eggs and makes sure there are always babies to keep the hive going. Good. And if I wanted to do a really fabulous job, I could even add another sentence, something like, she lives most of her life in the hive. So again, just to recap, we're looking for the main idea and details. The main idea is usually found at the beginning or the end of the passage, or if we're really lucky, we'll see it in both places. And the details are all of those little supporting facts throughout the passage that tell a little bit more about the main idea. If you need to review this as the week goes on, just come back to this video and watch it again.